I was 34 years old, sitting in my rusted-out Buick under a freeway overpass in Phoenix, Arizona with nothing but a bag of moldy bread, an eviction notice, and a voicemail I was too scared to listen to. That was the night I decided life was over, and then a stranger knocked on my window. This is the story of how one human moment, pulled me out of the pit and handed me a ladder. Not a handout. A ladder. The climb was still mine to make. But that moment? That stranger? He lit the fire. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. There's a kind of silence that sets in when life stops making sense. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind you feel on a mountain peak or late at night when the world's asleep and your heart feels full. No, I'm talking about the hollow kind. The kind that shows up when your phone stops ringing. When the last person who used to check on you stops checking. When the fridge hums louder than your own thoughts and you're not sure if it's hunger or heartache that's eating you from the inside out. That was my silence. I wasn't always like that. In fact, if you'd met me 10 years earlier, you would have thought I had it all figured out. I had a degree in marketing, a halfway decent job at a real estate firm, a girlfriend who smiled like summer mornings, and enough confidence to fill a room. But life has a way of testing how real your foundations are, and mine were built on sand. It started small. A little argument at work. A lost client. Then came the layoffs. Then the drinking. Then the breakup. Then the resentment. You ever watch a row of dominoes fall in slow motion? That's what my life felt like. I kept thinking, any day now this will turn around. Any day now someone will see me. Help me. Believe in me. But that day didn't come. So I moved cities thinking a change of scenery might fix the mess inside me. Phoenix was cheaper, warmer, and lonelier. I slept on couches, did odd jobs, pawned the last of my electronics just to buy gas and instant noodles. The Buick became both my ride and my home. I'd park it in the back of an abandoned strip mall, crawl into the back seat, and stare up at the stained ceiling like it held the answers. The day before the day I got my final warning from the city, my car would be impounded if I didn't move it by sunrise. Problem was, I had no gas. I'd already tried asking a few people at the gas station, but let me tell you something, when you've got sunken eyes and wear 3-day-old clothes, most folks look right through you. You stop being a person. You become a warning sign. A shadow. That night, I sat in that car, hands shaking, stomach growling, shame filling every inch of me. I wasn't crying. I didn't even have tears left in me. Just that silence. That awful, godless silence. I looked down at my phone, 1 bar of battery left. 1 voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't press play. Instead, I leaned my head back, closed my eyes, and whispered, God, if you're real, this is it. I got nothing left. That's when I heard the knock. A gentle tap on the window. My eyes shot open. My first thought? Cops. Second thought? Maybe someone trying to rob me. But when I looked up, I saw a man I'd never seen before. Mid-50s, flannel shirt, kind eyes. He wasn't there to take anything. He was there to give me everything. The knock on the window startled me. Not because it was loud, but because I hadn't heard a human voice in over 24 hours. When you go that long without talking, your own name starts to feel foreign. I cracked the window just enough to see who it was. Some older guy, flannel shirt, gray in his beard, but his eyes, they were soft. Not the kind of soft that pities you. The kind that's seen pain before and doesn't flinch. You okay in there? He asked. I didn't know how to answer. I wasn't okay. But I also didn't want to explain that I'd been sleeping in my car for 3 weeks and eating bread with spots on it because I was too broke to even buy a cup of gas station soup. So I just said, I'm fine. He nodded like he knew it wasn't true. He didn't push. He just looked inside the car, saw the wrappers, the empty water bottles, the mess. He didn't look away. Then he smiled, almost like we were just 2 guys on a normal night. You look like you could use some pancakes. I almost laughed. Thought maybe he was joking. But he wasn't. I know a place. Good food. Cheap. I'll cover it. I stared at him. He didn't look rich. Just steady. Comfortable in his skin. It had been a while since I'd been around someone who wasn't rushing to be somewhere else. You serious? I asked. Yeah. Let's go. You can't solve anything on an empty stomach. I hesitated. But the truth is I hadn't had a real meal in 2 days and something in his voice felt safe. So I locked up the Buick, threw my backpack over my shoulder, and got into his truck. I'm Ray, he said, offering a hand as he drove. Mike. We drove in silence to a little diner just off Van Buren. Place was old school. Neon lights, cracked leather booths. The waitress knew him. Called him Han, brought us coffee without asking. 2 stacks, bacon, eggs, he said. He's hungry. I didn't argue. I ate like I hadn't eaten in a year. He didn't talk. Just let me eat. And when I finally slowed down, he asked, "So, what happened?" I surprised myself by answering. I told him the truth. Job loss. Bad choices. Isolation. Depression. The spiral. He didn't judge. Didn't give advice. He just listened. Then he said, "Mike, what if this isn't your rock bottom? What if it's your turning point?" He pulled a card from his wallet. Slid it across the table. Just a name and a number. "You come by tomorrow. I'll introduce you to some people. Work's not easy, but it's a door." I looked at him and whispered, "Why me?" He looked right back and said, "Because someone did it for me once. And I've never forgotten." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid back in the Buick, staring at the ceiling, holding Ray's card between my fingers like it was the last thread tying me to the world. The diner food sat warm in my stomach, the first comfort I'd felt in weeks. But comfort isn't the same as peace. And peace was still far away. I kept asking myself, what if this is just another dead end? What if I show up tomorrow and it's all a joke, or worse, some kind of trap, another moment to be reminded I'm nothing? Then again, what if it's not? I must have dozed off around 4 a.m. Woke up sweating when the sun hit the windows. My mouth was dry and I had that ache in my chest again, the kind you get when your soul is tired, not just your body. I looked at the card again. It just said, Ray B. Morning Light Workshop. 645 South Grant Street. No title. No instructions. Just a name and a place. I sat there for a long time, engine off, debating whether to go. I'd gotten real good at talking myself out of things. Real good at saying, maybe tomorrow, or they wouldn't want someone like me. But I kept hearing his voice in my head, what if it's the middle? So I made the decision. I found an old shirt in my back seat that didn't smell too bad. Washed up the best I could in a gas station bathroom, paper towels, cold water, soap from a cracked dispenser. My reflection looked like someone halfway between a man and a ghost. But I tried. That mattered to me. Then I drove. Well, more like coasted. I barely had enough gas to make it to the address, but I figured if I ran out on the way back, at least I'd know I tried. When I pulled up, I wasn't sure I was in the right place. It looked like an old warehouse, nothing fancy, just a big white building with peeling paint and a dusty gravel lot out front. But there was a wooden sign above the door that said, Morning Light. Inside, it smelled like sawdust and sweat. There were guys in work boots moving around stacks of lumber, welding something in the corner, painting long planks of wood. It was loud, but there was energy. Motion. Life. Then I saw Ray. He was wearing the same flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, talking to a younger guy with tattoos all up his arms. He looked up and saw me. Smiled. Walked over like we'd known each other for years. "You made it," he said, and just like that I felt like I belonged. Even if it was just for a second. "This is the Morning Light Workshop," he said. "It's part job site, part rehab, part second chance. We teach trades. Give guys a shot who've been through the mud. It's not a program. It's a path." Then he added, "We don't ask where you've been. We ask if you're willing to work." He handed me a hard hat. A clipboard. A waiver to sign. I was standing at a threshold. 1 foot in the life I'd been surviving and 1 foot towards something I didn't dare believe I deserved. And I stepped in. The first thing I noticed was the noise. Not just the power tools and hammering, though that was part of it, but the voices. Laughter. Shouting. Music playing on a beat-up radio in the corner. It was a kind of chaos, but not the dangerous kind. The kind that meant life was happening. Ray handed me off to a guy named Luis. He looked like he'd lived 3 lifetimes, broad-shouldered, silver hair under his ball cap, and a stare that could size up your soul in 10 seconds flat. "You ever used a table saw?" he asked. "No, sir," I said. He grunted. "Then don't lose a finger." That was my orientation. For the next 4 hours I hauled planks, sanded boards, and swept floors. My hands blistered before lunch. My shirt clung to me with sweat. And every muscle in my back screamed like it was paying for every year I'd spent sitting in front of a computer screen or laying useless in the back of a car. But you know what? It felt honest. Nobody asked where I came from. Nobody cared what I used to be. I wasn't the guy who lost everything. I was just Mike, new guy on cleanup. It was the first time in years I felt like I could start writing a new sentence instead of rereading the same tragic paragraph. Ray checked on me once around noon. Brought me a sandwich and a Gatorade. "You holding up?" he asked. I nodded, even though I could barely feel my arms. "You'll be sore for a week," he said. "But that's your body waking back up." Then he looked at me, real steady, and added, "You're doing more than building furniture here, Mike. You're building yourself." I didn't say anything, just sat there chewing that sandwich, wondering how a place like this even existed. How a guy like Ray, who owed me nothing, decided to show up for someone like me. But as the afternoon wore on, the doubt crept back in. It always does. I miscut a board. Luis barked at me. One of the younger guys laughed under his breath. I dropped a drill and almost broke the bit. My chest tightened. The voice came back. The one I thought I'd left behind. You don't belong here. You'll screw this up too. They're just waiting to send you away. Old shame. Like smoke through a cracked window. I almost walked out. Had my bag half zipped and one foot out the side door when Ray caught me. You done for the day? He asked. I froze. Thought I might call it early. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't try to convince me. He just said, Mike, nobody here expects perfect. Just present. You walk out now and that voice wins again. You stay. You take one more swing and you prove it wrong. I didn't answer. Just looked down at my boots. But I stayed. And that swing, awkward, clumsy, shaky as hell, was the first time I felt stronger than my past. By the end of my third week at morning light, my hands had started to harden. Blisters turned to calluses. My grip stopped slipping. I could carry lumber without wincing, even got decent at measuring cuts before I made them. Luis didn't yell as much. That was how you knew you were doing okay. There was something about the routine that grounded me. Mornings came early, 5:30 a.m. alarms, cold rinse in the gas station sink, half-toasted bagel if I had enough coins. But by 7 o'clock, I was on the floor with a crew. And for 8 hours my mind didn't spiral. I wasn't replaying old failures. I was just doing. Work has a way of shutting down the noise. But healing isn't a straight line. And pain doesn't always show up in the ways you expect. It happened on a Wednesday. Luis handed me a thick slab of oak to move to the staining bench. I gripped it too tight and didn't see the tiny split in the edge. A splinter, long and sharp, drove right under my fingernail. It hurt like hell. Made me drop the wood and curse loud enough to turn heads. Go clean that up, Luis barked, nodding toward the break room. I ran cold water over it, pulled the splinter out with a pair of rusted tweezers someone left in the first aid kit. But it wasn't the splinter that got me. It was what came next. I sat down on the bench in the back, and out of nowhere, just like that, I started crying. I mean, really crying. Couldn't stop. Couldn't breathe right. It wasn't about the finger or the pain. It was like the splinter popped a hole in the wall I'd been patching up for years. Every buried emotion came rushing in. The way my mom stopped calling, the last night in that apartment with nothing but pizza crust and an empty fridge, the voicemail from my ex that I'd never had the courage to listen to, the shame of asking strangers for change and watching them cross the street. It all came pouring out. I sat there, alone in that little room, hiding behind a vending machine, shoulders shaking like a kid. And I hated it. I hated feeling that weak. That's when Ray walked in. He didn't say anything at first. Just sat down across from me and handed me a clean rag. Splinter? He asked softly. I nodded. Couldn't speak. He leaned back, arms crossed. Funny thing about pain, he said. It doesn't care if it's big or small. It just wants to be seen. I wiped my face, ashamed. He didn't let me stay there long. You're not broken, Mike. You're just honest. And that's a strength most men never touch. Then he stood, clapped a hand on my shoulder, and added, 10-minute break's over. Let's get back to work. And that's what we did. But that night, in the Buick, I realized something. I wasn't just healing my hands anymore. I was healing my heart. By the start of my second month at Morning Light, I wasn't the new guy anymore. There were a couple fresh faces, young dudes mostly. One had just gotten out of county. Another was sleeping in a shelter on 9th. I saw myself in all of them, that wide-eyed mix of shame and hope. You could tell who'd stay and who'd run. The ones who stayed didn't need much. They just needed someone to say, you still matter. Luis let me start training one of the guys. Just light stuff. Showing him how to sand corners, how to load the planer without jamming it. I didn't realize it until later, but that was his way of telling me I'd earned something. Trust, maybe. Or just space to grow. Ray, on the other hand, had been watching me more closely. He didn't hover. He never did. But he'd ask little questions at the end of the day. How you feeling? What's next for you? Stuff that made me pause. One Thursday afternoon, when most of the crew had packed up and the sun was dipping low, he pulled me aside. Got something for you, he said. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and handed me an envelope. I opened it right there, $300 cash. Neatly folded. What's this? I asked, confused. First paycheck, he said. We don't pay much here, but we pay honest. You've earned every cent. I stood there holding it like it might vanish. I hadn't seen that much cash in one place since. I couldn't remember. It felt heavy, sacred even. There's more, he added. We've got a spot opening up. One of the small rooms in the back of the shop. Nothing fancy. Bunk bed, small fridge, shared shower. But it's clean. Private. Safe. He paused. If you want it, it's yours. Rent's cheap. Work pays for most of it. I didn't know what to say. That offer, it scared me. Not because I didn't want it, but because it meant stepping out of survival mode. It meant letting go of the car, of the excuses, of the version of myself that only knew how to barely get by. I looked over at the Buick parked in the back lot. That car had been my coffin and my cocoon. It held my worst memories, but it also kept me alive. And now I was being asked to leave it behind. Ray must have sensed the hesitation. Sometimes, he said, we hang on to the very thing that's been killing us just because it's familiar. He didn't push. He just left the key on the bench beside me and walked away. That night, I sat in the Buick one last time. I ran my hands over the steering wheel, remembered the nights I cried myself to sleep in the back seat, the mornings I woke up freezing, the times I thought this would be where I died. Then I got out, and I walked toward the light spilling from the shop door. The first night in that room, I couldn't sleep. You'd think after months in the back of a car, a bed, even a stiff, creaky one, would knock me right out. But it didn't. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, the silence different now. Not empty. Just unfamiliar. The room was simple. Concrete floor, beige walls. One window, no curtains. A narrow desk someone had built from scrap wood. But it was mine. That key Ray gave me, it opened a door to something I hadn't felt in a long time. Dignity. The first thing I did? I cleaned. Not because it was dirty, but because it needed to be mine. I wiped the corners, folded the extra blanket, organized my 2 shirts and pair of jeans in the drawer like I had a wardrobe to be proud of. That was the beginning of it, I think, learning to care again, even if it was just for a 10 by 12 room and a single light bulb. Work stayed steady. Long hours, short breaks, new faces. The kid I'd trained, his name was Jaden, started opening up. One day on lunch break he asked, "You ever mess up so bad you thought nobody'd ever look at you the same again?" I didn't answer right away. I just nodded. Then I said, "Yeah. But the right people? They'll still see you." That night I thought about how far I'd come in just 2 months. Not just physically. Internally. There was color again, light creeping back in, one little crack at a time. I even caught myself humming while sanding down a table leg. I hadn't made a sound like that in years. Ray noticed. "You're different," he said one afternoon. "Cleaner." I joked. "Lighter," he said. "Like you finally put something down." That hit me deep. Because he was right. I had been carrying things, years of guilt, anger, fear, failure. You don't even realize the weight until someone shows you what it feels like to breathe again. Then, one weekend, something happened that took me by surprise. A woman walked into the workshop. Not just any woman, Maggie, one of the donors who helped fund the program. Ray introduced her like I was one of the crew, not some lost soul he found in a Buick. She asked me about a coffee table I'd helped build. I told her about the oak we used, how I'd messed up the first cut but learned to adjust. She smiled. "Sounds like you're learning more than just woodwork." That was the first time I looked someone in the eye without flinching. The first time I let someone see me and didn't feel like I had to apologize for existing. I was getting used to the quiet. Not the silence of loneliness, that heavy kind that clings to your skin. No. This quiet was different. It was earned. Like walking into a house you built with your own hands and finally hearing nothing but your breath. Peace was starting to feel normal. And that scared me. Because deep down I knew it wouldn't last forever. And it didn't. It started with a phone call. Or more accurately, a missed one. I still had my old prepaid phone. Beat-up screen, barely held a charge, but it was mine. I checked it one night before bed, one missed call from a number I hadn't seen in a long time. No name. Just 10 digits that hit like a punch to the chest. Her number. Her. I froze. Stared at the screen like it might catch fire. I hadn't spoken to my ex in almost a year. Not since the breakup that shattered whatever was left of me. Not since I stopped showing up for life. She tried back then. She called, texted, even came by the apartment once. But I was too far gone. I pushed her away hard enough that she finally stayed gone. But now she'd called. And left a voicemail. I didn't listen to it right away. I let it sit there, glowing on my screen for 2 full days. Every time I looked at it, my stomach flipped. I told myself I didn't need to hear it. That I'd moved on. That what we had was dead and buried under too many bad decisions. But the truth? I was scared it might remind me of who I used to be. Or worse, who I still was. It was Ray who noticed something was off. "You're walking like you're carrying bricks in your shoes," he said one morning. I laughed it off. Bad dreams. But he didn't let up. Later that night, we sat outside on the loading dock, watching the sunset over the gravel lot. I told him about the call. About the voicemail I couldn't bring myself to play. Ray didn't say much. Just reached into his coat and pulled out his own phone. "I kept a voicemail too," he said. "From my daughter. Right before I got sober. Took me 6 months to listen to it." He stared off at the horizon. "That message didn't fix me. But it reminded me that someone once saw the real me. And I was worth saving." That night, alone in my room, I finally pressed play. Her voice was soft. Nervous. But kind. "Hey Mike. I don't know if you'll ever hear this. I just wanted you to know I never hated you. I was hurt. But I always hoped you'd find your way. I heard about the program. I'm glad you're okay. Really." Then a pause. "You were never broken, Mike. Just buried." The message ended. My hands were shaking. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel haunted. I felt seen. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. We were finishing up a batch of reclaimed chairs for a local cafe. I was sanding the last armrest when Ray called out from the front of the shop. "Mike," he said, voice level. "Someone here to see you." I wiped my hands, set the sander down, and stepped out into the sun. And there she was. Leah. I hadn't said her name out loud in over a year, but it lived in me like a ghost. Seeing her standing there, jeans, hoodie, arms crossed like she didn't know whether to run or stay, it hit me like a wave to the chest. She looked smaller somehow. Or maybe I was just standing taller. "Hey," she said, almost a whisper. "Hey," I replied, my throat tight. For a second, neither of us moved. Like two people frozen between who we were and who we'd become. Then she smiled, soft, unsure. "You look good." I laughed under my breath. "You always did like a good fixer-upper." She chuckled. That old sound. Familiar. Painful. Kind. We sat outside on the bench under the awning. She told me she'd run into someone who worked at the cafe and heard my name mentioned. Said curiosity got the better of her. That she wasn't sure why she came, just that something told her she needed to. And I understood that. Because that's exactly how Ray found me. We talked. About the crash. The spiral. The silence that followed. I didn't try to defend myself. Didn't make excuses. I just told the truth. "I wasn't ready to be loved the way you tried to love me," I said. She looked down. "And I wasn't ready to lose someone I thought I could save." That part broke me. But there was no anger in her voice. Just sadness. And something softer underneath, maybe closure. "I listened to your voicemail," I said. "Took me a few days." She nodded. "Took me months to leave it." We sat there a while, watching workers pass by with beams and drills, sawdust dancing in the air like golden fog. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was just real. Before she left, she said something I'll never forget. "You were never the worst thing you did, Mike. I hope you keep going." And I told her, with tears caught somewhere between my ribs and my eyes, "I am. I really am." She smiled, hugged me gentle, like she didn't want to shake the new foundation I'd laid, and walked back to her car. As she drove off, I stood there, alone but not lonely. For the first time, I felt free. Not from her, but from who I used to be. It's been a year since that night under the freeway. Since moldy bread and a voicemail I couldn't press play on. Since Ray's knock changed everything. A year. 12 months of early mornings, hard lessons, honest work, and slow healing. The workshop looks different now. We've got new tools, a bigger crew, more orders than we can handle. They even made me crew lead last month. Me, the guy who couldn't even stand straight his first week. I've got my own little corner of the shop now. Still small, still simple, but full of things that matter. A radio that plays too loud. A photo of my mom and me when I was 6, taped to the mirror. A sticky note on the wall that just says, "Keep showing up." And I do. Every day. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Some nights, when I'm locking up, I sit on the old bench out front, the same one where Leah and I talked, and I look up at the stars. I don't think about what I lost anymore. I think about what I almost never found. Myself. The truth is, Ray didn't save me. He saw me. And in a world where I'd become invisible, that was enough to bring me back to life. We still get guys coming through morning light who look like I did, shoulders slumped, eyes dark, hearts on the verge of giving out. And I get to be the one who hands them a broom, a hammer, or just a hot meal and a quiet, "You're not done yet." Sometimes I still drive past that freeway overpass. The Buick's long gone. Sold it for scrap to help pay for my first month's rent in the room. But when I see that spot, I remember exactly how cold the vinyl seat was against my back. How the silence felt like a coffin. And then I remember the knock. Gentle. Unexpected. Human. The knock that said, "You're not invisible." The knock that said, "You still get to choose." And if you're reading this, if you're feeling this, then maybe this is your knock. Maybe this is your moment to believe that it's not over. That the worst thing about you isn't the end of your story. That rock bottom isn't the end, it's the starting line. You just need one person to see you. One voice that says, "Come eat. Come build. Come breathe." Mine started with a man named Ray. Yours? Might start right here. So go on. Take the next swing. You're not broken. You're just not done yet.